Hello, Weathersfield, Connecticut, in America. There are interbranch that switched names with private tie to them, for example, as victims, but as victim predators slash hyper predators relevant to where and to how motivated were roles with witch trials and are roles with witch trials, even if they were made up. For example, where and how they are being and haven't been assigned other identities of value, where and how actually the identity of value progression as American history, and as each of the sciences as they are actually individually grouped in together bound are and have been manifest. Great things can be found through native dreams. The native dreams say we must read each other's dreams. No, we have science. The Constitution is abridged. We were supposed to get the Constitution unabridged. There are we know from our memories since we were youngest ages we had the simultaneous means to discern how we have black pupils and whites of eyes, and we want the Native Americans system and nature unabridged not to be heard. No one wanted those crazy things, those exceptions, and their exception nature as criminal insidiousness. That method, that breaching method /S, forged a whole bunch of motivations, nature's needs and interests, to hide the same, to keep what it caused, the breaching method, blamed on other things, others, or selves for other motivations apparent. But that is increasingly at all locations. The remotely used possession, the syntax nature, therefore the function nature of everyone. And this is also relevant to where and how they got away. We ever hear about like how the church is involved with child abuses? And you think, how could someone get away with child abuses? Then you hear the people's stories. And when you do hear people making it up, see, there are collusions with victims too that understate and simultaneously overstate what is really to the complete possession and screening, motivations to screen, pretend not to realize the complete possession of the Constitution as its abridgments, roles, uses of them. They pretend passions and emotions with strangers offensively into branch, and they pretend about their motivations for that. So syntactically, through time, then when it becomes relevant to other instances, so there's a special kind of person who will dedicate their life to trying to fix, the country as a judge, or as a police person, as any service person. See, we have to be allowed to use as evidences, though, where and how good people would be evil, and as collusions with simultaneously with criminally foreign influenced positive treatments, criminally foreign influenced negative treatments, overt and insidious too, and as identity treatments simultaneously. So other is communicated, being and having been communicated, then our founders left us to communicate regarding questions like what caused slavery, and where and how there are exceptions to that and people trying to overcome that. That there are also collusions with that. And people understand this, but it's a logic of people that don't care. But they'll speak into it, and when someone says, I need a strong response on paper, Connecticut interbranch prevented me paper to respond to, where they made falsified police reports. Now these are Connecticut Weathersfield, Connecticut interbranch names involved at other intercities locations through time and with their family members and intimate ties as names since they were kids involved timed on and off databases, tied locations, and campuses, roles spreading lies and illusions, where and how that is relevant, and a part of where and how. For example, Sense and Sensibilities as a phrase associated with Jane Austen and or the English arts. It has the conjunction to where and to how we are actually manifest as a species identity of volume, and as how we are in three distinctly bound, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously bound, further hyper simultaneously bound identities of sequence / simultaneously nature as the volume, distinct identities of volume, but also non-distinct identities of volume, as individual, as grouped, and as the species is an identity of volume / S. See, only an individual can deal with the finite and could fight about and with the value of the finite. See, because nature uses the order of the finite, does not leave out the smallest finite detail. So, for example, we have to understand criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, especially regarding with the stewards of each age, because each age of fact treatment nature was measured and maintained by that breaching method that also measured and maintained countries grouped, extorted as grouped, not just extorted, worse than extortion was the nature and was the individual bodies individually grouped in together of the colonists, of their fact treatment nature styles, natures is actually manifest. Where this good person we are, where we want to be all naturally, where and how that is applied. Otherwise, they attach that person to fake words. And they do that to everyone. And see, that's self-valued by people as knaves, dealing with instances as told through campuses that were involved and are involved with whole predicate acts delivery system methods, plural. And that's relevant I messed up my own. It's relevant because there's a singular method, a breaching method, singularly value, where the substance and the uses of the laws that were psycho regarding witch trials, even if it was made up, and regarding slavery. We know it was not made up, but we know it's still stuff made up about it. And that is right there in our faces. I even figured out I could never believe too. If everyone's so against the KKK, when you see these crazy people on TV and stuff like that, they're in collusions with preventing the youngest kids from speaking about from using the only increasing value of the revelations about that come from where and how the Native Americans were sickly distinctly the victims from the victim predator / hyper predator colonists, and then further as us as Americans, and further as Native Americans, there are further victims. Not through us, but through we're self-cultivated through ourselves, self-entertained. Is the Constitution unabridged? Is that hyper-native system that is one way with volume, one way with words, all words individually grouped in together, that these ways abridged are included increasingly as systems tactile ulterior from. So social media is recorded being and having been employed, used to measure effectively, to measure and maintain the people, that the indicting bodies, using it for roles, self-value roles with it, uses of social media to keep things coming before interbranch locations that originally and still are employed, for example, to screen the real causes of it. In other words, where time treatments are simultaneously too fast, too slow to get over on, proper values treatments of the five identities of sequence nature and as identity, proper identity treatments. So the same people that pretend from backgrounds they're against racism, they're against different forms of it, and they cite historical proofs of bad things and stuff like that. Those passionate emotions, are offensively, those are people also getting involved in other people's conversations when they're trying to calmly use what is true always, not denying the slightest secret, not defining finite detail, not valuing the slightest finite detail being or having been denied. Its value relative to that which is positive to and as itself, automatically equally to all parts of space nature. And we know that Earth has an especial difference to the rest of space/existence that is increasingly relevant to as our own self, distinctly from ourselves. And so non-distinctly, everything is in demonstration of what is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, and further hyper-simultaneously. The whole time itself as the identity of the hyper-simultaneous, as an only increasing value to science, relative to where we are, these three identities of volume distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, and per how hyper-simultaneously. English was revealed to teach this. It is more probable and is more practical than what you've heard English, the history of English about, and per the nature of that. In other words, that it is more probable and more practical to discern evidence. For example, how M is the middle letter, 13th letter. And N, neutrality, comes between that and omega. See, omega, mother is omega, which is female, but mother is omega distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously from, while as omega, and while as alpha, because it has to do with the electrical engineering and its identity of relationship to itself. The volume we have manifests temporary as plural volumes, where and how more and more forever nature is being made that is increasingly valuable to, while as the value of our syntax, not because its value as our functions, because wherever there is a positive or a negative treatment, there is an identity treatment. And wherever there's an identity treatment, there are positive and negative. Identity has a relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. This is greater than and more finite than math, than while as math's value /s/value progression. No. And hyper additionally with ground. And has this positive relationship to itself or not. But this is relative to being through a system and its roles with positive and negative treatments, that these are tactical ulterior from. How they got away with this has something to do with their roles with the uses of corners of streets and the intelligence community along roads and routes, and their uses of corners of buildings to make exceptions where people make statements as confession, which also are through time at different locations. Which, for example, one of the things they confess is where and how putting fake things in databases is a crime method. And one of the ways they get away with it is for how at interbranch locations increasingly originally installed, they were knaves. They were knaves in collusions at locations, at all crime scenes with the hypercrime scene. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal, I'm a journalist. I was attached to fake words. In the course of this, Connecticut campuses, names from the campuses, and their family members. They got involved with timed criminally foreign influence uses of investigations, of investigators, of journalists, and of their campuses. Intercedes time uses of near me. Now, this is since before anyone was born. They've been doing this, and they've been lying about their motivations. I don't know Christopher Cullen. He's one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with mayors and people involved with gun dealings and things like that with the United States military, criminally foreign influence, people associated with the World Trade Center, criminally foreign influence, where that's not true too. Simultaneously, tactically delusions rot is also relative. They have a whole bunch of names at Hartford Hospital with the security of them tied to a Mark Violet and a Violet family, and involved with a whole bunch of people in a Leahy family I never had communications with. They don't provide writing, and they attach me to fake conversations with this Leahy family that pretend to know me through time, with New Britain courts and Hartford courts, affected confessions and requests to help from me and from other people before the World Trade Center attack. I noticed the people involved with that because I also had confessions about and demonstrations about that from years prior. There's a John DeMorrow and there is a Joe DeMorrow who had roles with doctors, with drugs and medicines crimes, with little boys and girls and wire crimes with them, falsified police reports roles, natures of identity theft frauds against people from other sides of the school that they're not even in the classes with them. They're locking kids into conversations where they rely upon the integrity of the people around them, and that is having been employed, where and how they have no integrity, where and how the breaching method measures and maintains other debated by them. So they have to self-value styles and means and natures to get away with it. One of the ways they've been doing it is using why and how they have sexual narratives with the schools, and why and how they have roles with crimes like digital pictures of the kids of various natures associated with the people the names at the only locations that could counter such. There are a whole bunch of ties with Middletown names associated with an Ian, and people with the name Ian, but maybe more than one person because they forge and switch names. But there are FBI with the name Ian on Twitter, further involved with an upskirt nature, a principal one in jail for that. And the people from his jail, Connecticut courts, there's a jail in Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut, is involved with fire campuses. That campus, I believe they refer to those as campuses too. And the campuses that train them, a whole bunch of people from Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with families that work with the police forms and the jobs with like the big box stores. Like used to be Caldor, now it's Walmart there. There's a Stop and Shop, used to be Food Mart. Stop at shops. They have people, and then they have the people that go into the unions and things like that. That all these uses of people pretending passions and emotions, like tough guys online, they're planting evidences for little tricks recorded, where they bring people before interbranch locations and they stack more fake things into those locations, where and how that was involved with uses of the crime scene, the hypercrime scene /S. So it was reported that 30 people, around 30 people, more than 30 people, I guess, already just year alone in Hartford got shot. There were only about 300 streets in Hartford. There are about that many different natures of sick, conscious means, things against that the individuals have, where and how they employ. The only people that are going to be involved with the law, with the nature of the law and with its locations, are going to be styles of criminally foreign influence logic, syntax nature, sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase, with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones. See, there are revelations that come from where and how they blamed other things, others, ourselves, where and how our founders told us to blame. They communicated, what they actually communicated for us to do was to blame the breaching method, the criminal insidiousness delivery system method that enslaved everyone sickly distinctly. Fact, cheapy nature enslaved sickly distinctly everyone. Worse than extorted, and to hide how sickly non-distinctly, to keep self-valued how sickly non-distinctly, because now everyone has to react as knaves. Now you have to react to people, some kid who did crazy things, where the kids are a part of the shootings. Now you have to react where they have adults. By the time people are shooting each other as adults, they already came through what they have, each age of fact, human nature, sickly distinctly, victim of, self-valued law, because everyone needs knave, because only knave, Knave, has spoke. I am the bad guy. Didn't I see you at Whiting? Yeah, principal child abuser made up things. They forced him to make up things. They hide what I caught him doing. A principal on the sex offender registry. They falsified police reports. They fabricate. There was a Bob Chase who made a confession. He was supposed to show me a police report. He confessed that a Phil Colola was one of the names also involved. Now this is involved with people who have been planting with Newington Police and Wethersfield Police and Rocky Hill Police. Also have roles with federal crimes with evidences on my street with the FBI and other agencies. There's also a Ray Cololo involved with the police foreign and domestic military families on and off Central Connecticut State University, Trinity College, people on off the state judicial branch offices. So I haven't gotten a response on paper. Interbranch switched names. This Bob Chase has crimes with his patients and criminals before they were caught with the interbranch. They've been hiding this from Judge Napolitano. They've been putting fake things in databases. They have people associated with Sandy Hook, Newtown, also involved with the whole bunch of Middletown locations and names are involved with connected timed natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders instances with the names on and off my street and tied to them. Also recorded how forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to roles, because they use the crime method of forcing people to use other people's names or to speak about things that most people wouldn't want to speak about, or they just attach you to fake words anyway. WFSB attached me to fake words with themselves and with others as roles at the crime scenes, like Whiting Forensics. Whiting Forensics through time has roles with body dumping spots and names involved with the FBI. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, Thaddeus Grabowski, John LeConte, and Dominic Lepriata, and their family members and neighbors are also involved on off Fox Connecticut News right before a 2006 district court case involved with covering live progressions from what I caught the interbranch doing, also with the depositions of the various natures of federal criminals, some of them as the co-defendants of former director of the FBI. And before that, well, they were caught for that. That was before they were even his co-defendants. But before they were caught for like union pension thefts and things like that, they were involved timing identity theft fraud instances against me in that corners of the building, so that they do it so there's no way to counter, so you should ignore things. Also, when there are exceptions, you let it go because there are more people involved than are just no, it's not legitimately how they have control of each age of fact-sheeping nature. Further, simultaneously, the people involved with the uses of the child campuses were timed uses of roles with untimely deaths and other federal rules of evidence crimes, even if that was made up on Trinity College. That's also the names that had conjunction to the families with the Wethersfield police, like a Jamie Smith and a David Smith, and the fire department. There's an Inspector Mike, who's also involved with Officer Jerry Miller on Facebook, and a Joshua Julian. I never had anything to do with Joshua Julian in my life. There's proof that there's a woman at Trinity College who my neighbor told me to hold a cup one time. There are people with the intelligence community involved with identity thefts, fraud, slanders in the past, where they use statements as confessions to strangers when they, as rules too, timing where we're going to be walking. As people, one of the things there's things that are differentially and constantly relevant to that. One of the things that is relevant to it is where and how they share. There are people with shared ties between themselves made for them and made by mixed with how they made them for themselves, but and how they're sequence shifting about that when we have to use their names. There is also one of ILO's home services. I can't get a response. There's some police families from Wethersfield through time and Hartford families that are involved with the ILOs and fire departments, attaching me to fake locations, sequence shifts. They made a couple fake instances pertaining to know me with names on and off Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University that were planting fake things in databases at schools I went to since I was a kid. And from behind your back, so you have nothing to do with it. They're pretending they know you, and they're using little fake instances, and they're even made up. Because it also shows, if you look at that lot, they're out of sequence. After we were already graduated high school, Joel came back. And in other words, for a dance, and it had something to do with there's a former mayor Gold also involved with the Joella putting things fake, and with the forensics, there's a the witness protection program in areas of overt criminal enterprises had roles with some kids when I was a kid, and in effect they made them make confessions at corners, and they pretend to know you. This is relevant to the 30 shootings reported in Hartford this year. There are individuals that are involved with more bad things against individuals as interbranch families, and with the areas of overt criminal enterprise, private ones, everyone kept fake together, So we need to get them from onto paper with the interbranch. And the news too, preventing me voice by attaching me to fake conversations with themselves about relative things. And with fake conversations with others. I caught them with child abusers. Whiting Forensics is involved with all kinds of with people from Mexico with the Mexican Navy, and people with foreign and domestic medical families involved with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids as the only people against that don't from the locations that can only counter that, and with physical delusions raw. These are people with names to Sandy Hook, Newtown, with plainclothes street. They have something to do with the corner of Church Street in Old Weathersfield and Main Street in Old Weathersfield. The intelligence community and names there are involved with connections between and uses of connections between the strangers and the times placements and classes I had. There are people that went to Central Connecticut State University, who had sexual circles confessed and recorded to me. Now, these are people that and pretended to know right before with a Danielle Perone. I don't know Danielle Perone. And they made a fake exception years ago, pretending passions or emotions with a Tom Perone too. And there's a Timothy O'Brien and the Violettes. Now, these are police families and interbranch with uses of drugs and medicines crimes with the only police forms that can counter, even ones with badges. Delusions Roth, too, simultaneously. Faking things into databases, fake conversations with victims about crime scenes and about other people's names because they were shown and are used remotely shown where and how they have to pretend to be integrity where they can't be integrity. And in other words, because that's why they're speaking about politics. There's a certain type of victim / hyper victim, predator / hyper predator. When people extinguish words, short words, in their protraction regarding the revelation that come from where and how the course of black pupils and whites of eyes, and that being native pure as that volume science, where and how there were revelations that come from that. They have the sciences abridged. They have the time treatments. They have the narratives, the motivations, narratives, natures. Oh, that's what it is. That's just the time. Well, look what was going on at the same time in the past. If you really look at what litigation was, it's a certain type of victim that's going to try to go into being service of anything because all locations were employed this way used. Hey, thanks, Jeff Brad. I know for you, I can't get them on the ring because they use wire crime methods. Because when I was a kid too, they attached little kids to fake words, fake motivations, fake ties to other people and backgrounds, fabricated police reports, fake communications with me. They communicated with other kids because they had plotted them. They had made them bring up subjects and people's names. Where if they spoke legitimately about that. Like a Kerr family. I don't know the Kerr families. There are more, at least two Jerry Kerrs. There's a Michael Kerr. One of the Jerry Kerrs is involved with an officer, Jerry Miller, and with and people involved with remote uses of deans and their family members, of principals of schools and of their family members, the teachers of the subjects and their family members, the coaches and their family members distinctly too. While non-distinctly. It shows when you look at what's actually recorded, where and how a breaching method is having been applied. It's relative to where and to how. The only increasing value, again, of the course of black pupils and whites of eyes abridged, and the nature of it relevant. See, little kids have means to discern the criminal insidiousness, which is a phrase also. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police form, I'm not a criminal. There's a Trantolo and Trantolo, who's also one of the ones involved. So there's a Bob Chase too with the Whiting forensics. So who you bad guy at Whiting forensics? You're one of these ones with involved. There's a former director of the FBI in his defendant capacity. And there are other state police involved with this Phil Claw in the confessions of the Bob Chase and the principal child abuser I caught first, but for you guys jumped in. and you got with fake things. You guys have roles with that, with federal crimes with WFSB. And WTNH was made to fabricate emails to hide the confessions and other statements and additional information brought in by the principal child abuser over answering machine phone. So they hid that by making up a fake communications with emails, because these are people also with the police forms on off Trinity College and CCSU involved criminally foreign influence. They forced Saudis to roles with them with federal crimes like that since before the World Trade Center. Then they got stuck and they had to hide it. And that was made. The Wethersfield police confessed, recorded. There are people with the name Scalora involved further with child sex offenders associated with Wethersfield police, and medical people involved with identity thefts and frauds. People involved with the programs of agencies, the training of each age of fact, cheating nature, criminally foreign influence, delusions, raw. Don't forget that's what we're speaking about when we speak about what blames other things, others, ourselves, what really caused slavery, the value of, the significance of it. Who's going to justify the suburbs were tactically denatured before our founders were even born, before cars were even invented, let alone the cities. And this unfolded everyone's screening how and why that was. Because the laws were against anyone not telling on the people next to them for all kinds of crazy laws. Witch trials, even if they were made up. Because, too, again, where and how our founders told us to blame the slavery and the breaching method that had put it in place before they were even born. Instead, through our schools, they're blaming on other things, others themselves. If there are kids that are falling behind, has nothing to do with even when there are true reasons. They're using those for lies too. They're putting in between lies. That is only capable of speaking more and more. Fake. Fake news is real. News predicate acts and methods of them are real. WFSB, please stop sequence shifting too. You guys started this. You brought it up. Make sure I get a name for the police chief Cintron too. He's involved with you guys at the corners too. Why do they keep making it worse? Make sure you fix it already. I had to fucking beg you. Excuse my language. I've been asking since before I caught with the principal child abuser. Interbranch kids. There's a Brian Silver too. I never had a conversation in my life. He's one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with a whole bunch of distinct natures of child abuse, even medical, even sexual and legal, with a Leahy family. Hey! Make sure I get a fucking response on paper with them. Pick one name in sequence. Have them say sorry to Judge Napolitano. Have them say sorry to Twitter. The FBI too. Let's get on paper this little creep bag who put the picture of the girl in the skirt on the Twitter to me and demonstrated his roles with those houses, like associated with the directly and indirectly with the Perone family. Also on off Fox Connecticut News involved with predicate acts with them, the buildings next to them, 2 Mendez police. Make sure they don't fucking pretend they had a conversation with me ever. In other words, and I noted the one exception that were real fast instance. He knew my name when I was in middle school. He's involved with people from my high school. That was the only time. That's how it was communicated to me. There's that are stacking fake things in databases. There are people with the Institute of Living on the campus of Hartford Hospital that has been involved with names next to the campus's intercities with timed uses of them. Then they run in to hide their live progressions and speak fake things into records. I caught them using social media simultaneously as roles, recorded criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, leaving out exceptions. So New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page is involved with federal crimes of juxtaposed natures of child abuse with the principal child of abuser since before he was caught. Other people with the Wethersfield Police Department on the sex offender registry relevant. Their roles with union locations, with the Stop a Child locations on off Town Line Drive has something to do with people who plant evidences against and steal the identities of others and then pretend those, like Ray Clow is also a name on YouTube that said I was immature. He's one of the ones involved with the child sex offenders cliques, with this Phil Clow that Bob Chase also recorded confessing. He was supposed to show me the police report. I didn't get that police report. Then they made another totally fake, different one. I needed one I could respond, and then put confessions and fake, wire crimes with it, with these two Mendez police. Who are also recorded and confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by others involved through time with federal evidence as crimes, child abuses of juxtaposed natures, two uses of that, roles with names on and off elderly homes tied, and the three spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike, and the spot next to that, for example. And next to that is the state judicial branch offices, houses next to that. Ray Clow also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with others, that people that roles with cliques and little tricks where they spoke lies to teachers I had that he wasn't even in my class with me. They tried to make a fake exception with the only class they had with me in high school, besides typing, both those, the typing class, and they put me in a class with a math class with him, with a Ray Clow. And that's one of there's a Steven Stocko who's involved with wire crimes with them. People on and off the state judicial branch offices, federal crimes on and off Central Connecticut State University and other campuses behind people back like a little fake punk, fake conversations with me. He's got wire crimes with the courts and with the cops involved, and with the military, foreign and domestic involved. And with Weathersfield Pizza, for example, near the state judicial branch offices. Make sure I get a response for the campuses. I haven't had a response yet. And I didn't even get to say anything yet. The things I did speak were regarding the confessions and statements left on my answer machine with lies. Also, the principal child abuser, the Mr. Bean, brought up the name Mike Levine. He said Mike Levine's involved, who's also one of the ones who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the intelligence community on and off Timeline Drive locations, on and off Newington locations with shopping centers, like those miniature shopping centers, and the big box stores through time. You don't have one identity of the law, nature of anything of government that is legitimate anywhere the species body is. Thank God, because we're all is a bridge. So let's get your response. When someone tells you to respond for child offenders, you respond. These are more people involved with Sandy Hook, Newtown, criminally involved with kids. Delusions wrought too, fabricating audio and video. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, have roles with people that tied to Omni that use my name behind my back. I don't even know the Omni people. And it's those locations next to banks and things like that. It's all along routes too. People all along routes involved with this, So make sure that we have the news predicate acts fixed. That's a crime method to pretend that people are saying bad things about the police when the police forms know that they did things wrong first. I caught them since I was a kid. Relative to this, and I wouldn't warn them if I was trying to hurt them, because it's easy to discern. That's why little rap guy. What do you think about the Alex Jones 18 billion judgment verdict in Sandy Hook case? That court and on and off the state judicial branch offices has been involved with federal crimes with kids on those locations, the campuses, and from off them, and with their patients and criminals since before they got caught, and with their relevant delusions, because they were tactically maintained. And they're switching names and roles with other natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders instances, and fake punk tough guys on Facebook and on social media that are where it's relevant, where there are criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and prosecutors and judges caught recorded manifest animate, the wrong way. Forgiveness is not to give up, but to show also additionally to this, that which is to remote uses of it. They use parks, on-off parks, involved with on-off election locations. There is worse than and more finite than while as election crime acts methods recorded. They have people make mass allegations wrong on mass scales. They employed that so they could use that and say, "Oh, this person's an extremist. This person makes conspiracy theories." Just put what they say up the front. They've been fabricating audio and video and backgrounds where no one could have a chance to demonstrate that to them. Time treatment simultaneously, too fast, too slow. This is worse than extortion. So these are people on off the colleges and universities and on off the child campuses that have positions and ties to the politicians, mayors, and things like that, and where and how it is manifest at Washington, D.C. and at the World Trade Center, a bunch of ways relevant. And then leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense, where we could observe how Connecticut names had roles as the ones that I caught, not through legal proceedings. It wasn't. No, I caught them in life. They have roles with other countries and with military have something to do with like Normandy Heights apartment and the apartments near there in the town over, but next to Central Connecticut State University, and the ones next to them where they train the police farms, where they train the journalistic families, criminally foreign influence, delusions raw, sequence shifting styles. Nature's is actually recorded. See criminal insidiousness. See, it is evidence that and how since founding, not just in America, the legal natures have been countering criminal insidiousness wrong. And this breaching method knew they would be countering it wrong. And self-valuing roles with whole predicate acts methods recorded. Way worse than what they've been putting kids in jail too. It's not just shootings. It's not just 30 shootings. Just one year. There've been shootings like that in Hartford every year for many years. It's a little rat trap between the fake campuses and the fake difference and uses of that. Directly tied to the projections with the narratives. Oh, it's the money. Let's get to the premises treatments. The black course of black pupils, whites of eyes, abridged. Who denies that? They only get away with it because with these, they don't really care. Which university you live near, deaf bred? It's nothing personal against the people that live next to universities. It's how they pull they pull themselves and their family members, more and more people, as sense and sensibilities, not wanting the people around them to get hurt. For lies often about little seemingly insidious little nonsense things, sometimes too, where and how they have roles with the overt predicate acts and narratives and backgrounds where the investigators are being and haven't been used remotely, and how there are means to discern that. They're not allowed to tell on that, but we can. And they demonstrated it already, as what is actually recorded leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. For example, proven where post-dated documents had been post-dated from inside the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center, right before the attack, leading up to it, obviously too that. And since they've been hiding the value of that as roles that have also been contributing me and others that were in the context of the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers right before the attack. They attached us to increasingly to fake words in different contexts and about the World Trade Center. So the investigators of it are criminally foreign influenced. They're not legitimately hiding their motivations, trying to hide how we went to war already over it. because it wasn't ourselves alone that went to war over it. They have roles with all these countries in the news. They pretend they're against Russians. They have Russians, Americans against our own with psychology, psychiatry. They have roles stacking fake things in databases, roles with time criminally foreign influenced, acting, pretending passions, emotions at locations and interbranch locations and at crime scenes, increasingly used effectively, hypercriminally foreign influence. Anyone who tries to demonstrate what's actually recorded, they attach them to fake words, fake locations, fake ties to other, fake natures of ties to other. All kinds of politics with fire departments that I only know about because it connects to between strangers and with their uses of narratives on Facebook. In other words, we have to get the Wethersfield police on paper from the names forging and switching. Like these two men of this police Chief Cintron. They're also involved with a whole bunch of names at the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 in Rocky Hill, and along Elm Street and along Route 3 through time. And the Route 3, which goes by the state judicial branch offices, has something, so we need to get them on paper. And I'll show you how to make change. That is evolution's fruits and gifts, means out of nowhere for everyone at once. There is one way to fight where no one loses. Everyone wins. Evolution science only feels like game /s, or we sense it. See, they have sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase again, employed by a breaching method. Also to screen itself. Simultaneously, increasingly, preemptively, actively, and increasingly other ways simultaneously, everyone who's in defenses of formal integrity narratives or nature's uses. You ever see how they put someone up there and they when they're speaking about mental health, for example, those people don't care about in other words, that phrase is recorded involved with all kinds of uncharged natures and methods of organized crime, distinct natures of organized crime, including drugs and medicines crimes, and uses of those locations where the only counters have been using that to hide with their roles with uses of each age of fact, be nature, sickly, distinctly a victim. Have you seen the elderly homes? Do you realize they lock people in there? If you say, because they get lost, why are you drugging them then? These are some sick people. And in other words, so it's all along that route from Old Wethersfield, right next to, there's a witch trials place right next to where George Washington had to come to counter extort, to force to help us to win the last battle of the Revolutionary War. People in Old Wethersfield, people associated with that, which with the Institute of Living, for example, one of the nation's first, slavery. Had George Washington leave slavery forced, left entrenched, north and south, sickly distinctly. This is what our experts were supposed to teach us. Instead, they used knowledge to get over on us, knowledge of facts to get over on exception nature, to get over lying, to uses of roles with criminally foreign influence, readings of statutes relevant. There is a Peruta I never had a personal conversation with, made the illusion that of an appearance of other one time, who's involved with the news, with various forms of news media and of social media type vlogging and things like that. He has a program called Summary Judgment. No, involved with lawyers and one's personally involved with the police chief Cintron and his family, his daughter, and his extended family also involved with them, switching names and forging names into branch crimes with child defenders, leaders of the kids, because they had to keep hiding live progressions. These are also his officers, like there are Dillon family members, a Dillon family involved with their remote uses of the sense and sensibilities of an Anna Dillon / Annie Dillon, who's also involved with real estate companies and real estate transactions, who's involved criminally with the child defenders and the police forms and uses of their family members on and off the campuses, and its ties to the on off Town Line Drive connected things. And as people that have roles with uses of pretending to be against of things like prejudice, who know consciously they prevent people short words. They attach little kids to fake words, fake ties to other kids, fake natures of ties to other kids. You have some sick fake recording of every instance that happens everywhere location, only capable of being. You have to stop them from comparing. In other words, when they're making instances regarding kids, they're using other kids' names too, and that was employed. There are employed uses of that on campuses and off campuses, locations behind people's back. There's a Ray Reynolds I never had anything to do with. Barely had words with him ever, and that was a conversation when I was in kindergarten. They went out of their way years later because there were people associated with that kindergarten class with their kids and their whole family. They're stacking fake things into databases. You need to get them on paper. They need to pretend. They need to stop pretending they could even hold an election in town, let alone. So Alex Jones. And the counters, see, the breaching method employed crazy negatives and counters to it as one array, employed to defend itself as what can't defend itself and afford proper syntactical counters to the real causes of criminal insidiousness at all locations, areas, and states. So I don't know what that guy's name on Pond site is too. One of the crime methods they do is pretending, well, why would you behave that way? When with someone I went in a video. I did that purposely. I asked you guys, I asked everyone nicely 50,000 times, get me the name. I got one response for the confessions that brought up the campus to me by the names involved. Then they hid that. You watch what I caught the police and the courts and their family members being used for remotely. You watch too, because these are people personally tied to doctors and to forensics locations, as people involved also with the names further then and now. Falsified police investigators used to further the same types of crimes they're supposed to be against. That's where measured and maintained. Our roles with that breaching method that never went away. Your many pray. Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Transportation, people with the name Lombardo also recorded involved with the police forms and the Department of Transportation, Department of Motor Vehicles, like with this Perone family and their neighbors, they involved with this, with predicate acts with the interbranch, as the one names criminally foreign influence, a whole bunch of different countries, including Russians. There's a Russian woman who's one of the ones attached me to fake conversations with the Leahy family. There's a Judge Killian. There are 3 times they forced me for a mental evaluation. 2 times they totally made things up before I could respond to the first time, where they attached me to totally fake conversations with people involved with all kinds of natures of federal crimes with kids on my street. They have their own patients and criminals run into high life progressions together. So they just leave such fake chaos, tactically orchestrated, though. So whether they're pretending it's chaos, in other words, they're keeping everyone pretending they don't understand things. And they're keeping hidden how they're putting fake things into databases with people that have been using corners of buildings, corners of streets, and their motivations narratives. If you follow that, it'll follow you. You will see how They record, confess, demonstrate, confirm the same people pertaining to be against various natures of prejudice, even sexual. Those are people involved, timed roles with conscious uses of preventing little kids are actually they're when we're at each age, their actual means to discern how we have all this might. We have cars. Before they had cars, they designed the suburbs tactically natured. Slavery was north and south. Other is pretended, implied. How they got away with this is tied to where and how they employed, you know, each age of positive things and negative things as collusions against identities, actual syntax. These are little identity theft, fraud, slander, rat traps that keep people in the backgrounds, roles with the criminally foreign influence databases since before computers. Since before our founders were born, there were databases, relationships, where and how they have this criminally re-engineered republic for which we stand, as actually manifest as a bridged constitution. Who is Craig? Who is Craig Burns? I'm the bad guy. Who is Craig Burns? Is he one of the ones associated with Whiting's forensics? There is also the witness protection program that has involved a bunch of ways with corners of streets near me, with the FBI in their defended capacity, and with various natures of federal criminals who, since before they got caught, have been speaking fake things, acting so other people could take pictures. I don't know. They may try to make a fake ties to me, fake natures of ties between me and Mark Violet, and they said they shared her, Mark Violet, Justa Klavinskis, and I didn't communicate with the Corone brothers, but they said they were all, they were all shared his sister. Now this is also after he had also already pretended to know me. In other words, but has something to do with the uses of a park. They take pictures of people walking by each other, and then they use those instances pretend to know the people know each other. They lock people, and when they're, in other words, and it's got all these ties to the former Mayor Gold and to a Debbie Gold and their roles with various nature, spreading lies and illusions with various natures of federal criminals before they got caught, and then timed as adults, as names roles further with predicate acts on off Trinity College, that were also names that are involved on off the principal child abuser's campus. His Facebook page, the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court, rape threats against me, with the name KNERR. These are names forging and switching clicks. Also, the name Bobby, and how males use the name Bobby, and females. They have police forms with the name Bobby, and we're involved with stripper places. In other words, where they use also offensively the confessions as people where they make conversations or evidence in conversations so they can bring things and ask people why they didn't mention things or why they did that, where they use time simultaneously too fast, too slow to cover up, where also they've been fabricating audio and video into databases. So where and how we have problems on and off campuses, intercities, they have connections. A whole bunch of people tied to a Detective Samuda involved with some KKK themed Justa Klavinskis, and some courts in Middletown courts also brought up a middle school. And there's a house. There are houses next to the schools in town who have been fabricating things into databases, speaking lies and identity thefts and frauds behind people's backs. Uses of all exception nature criminally too. It's a demonstration of the same thing. I never had anything to do with Justa Klavinskis. I never even met his brother. And they're recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the uses of the people with Joshua Stryker and others on off Trinity College with judges and prosecutors and the former director of the FBI involved criminally timed on and off that campus and other campuses through time, also with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. Their uses of Afghanistan families, their uses of Russian families' roles, their uses of Saudi families' forced roles. Their use before the World Trade Center attack. Now, so make sure you get a response for the. There's a Craig Oliveri too. I never had a conversation, never met Craig Oliveri in my life. I saw him sitting on a chair one time. They got mad, apparently behind my back because Eric Oliveri wanted me to ship or he shipped drugs. He made confessions regarding shipping drugs through UPS, and with an Eric Jensen, who had told me before that too. Eric Jensen is one of the people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with various natures of federal crimes, with federal criminals before they got caught, and with the plainclothes police forms and people that went to my grammar school. I don't even think he went to my grammar school, and I thought he lived in Newington. But those were people that were involved with conversations behind my back with educators and with police forms in courts that are stacking fake things into databases, and with their uses of their family members' officer roles. So we have to get a response for the campuses, plural, intercities involved. Then they pretended fake conversations, fake letters, evidence is planting. So I typed things a little bit unclear purposely. They don't use that as evidence. They use a fake thing so they painted themselves into corners. Various Hartford courts and their family members. And uses of them were recorded on and off the campuses, having been affected before the World Trade Center attack, as people who also took part with predicate acts with them on and off Trinity College, on and off CCSU after the World Trade Center attack, as names also involved with the World Trade Center, as those involved with further sequence shifts and other evidences planting from inside courts, like the proven after the World Trade Center attack. Post-dated legal papers had been presented to the Ninth Circuit Court from inside the court. There was also an officer Magnanos involved also with the uses of the name, with confessions regarding his uses of the name. Officer Stephen Manos, who's one of the people that was also next to the World Trade Center before the attack. And so there are more FBI involved with various natures of sexual crimes and things like that. There are police forms associated. There are like gun places and things like that. People, whatever they're doing with all these different countries, on off shipping locations, the police, WFS, UPS and stuff like that, playing these punk games too, with connections since that go back to Where You Won't Let Me and other little kids. Use the short words right regarding where and how we could discern fake. They get away with it because they demonstrate, confess, and record, confirm they're criminally foreign influenced with other differentially. In other words, there are roles with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, not for those narratives or motivations, with theory. But relative to where and how they've been faking things in cases, using their rules with all instances, formal and other, even with their worst patients and criminals, how kept their styles of logic incapable of defending that and of affording logic capable of defending the real causes of criminal insidiousness at all locations, areas, and states. So something to do with their uses of the parks and the campuses to plant evidences, also with as uses, conscious uses of private schools and public schools made with connections made for them by the intelligence community and foreign involved. So make sure they get on paper. Any one of the people who disbelieves, make sure they pick one name and sequence, please. Thank you. Let's keep it right on the child abuse. I want a response to the fake emails and why they hid the confessions and statements from the principal child or friend and from me and the other Weathersfield parents. Let's go, because there are more confessions and ties to more leaders of the kids. They're not responding so they can make it seem personal and they can get away with it. You get them on paper now, because there's nothing personal unless you hide and plot. I rap a lot. Make sure they get on paper. And Death Bread. Make sure Whiting Forensics gets on paper too. I caught them with crimes with their patients and criminals before they got caught. There was an O'Brien family also with Sandy Hook and other names with Sandy Hook involved with predicate acts on my street through time, relevant, and with various police departments. So make sure I get a response too. ILO Home Services. See how they have insidious people involved with giving food to the people without food. See how they don't have enough food, even though we're on the suburbs denatured since before our founders were born. Even though we have cars now, get down. Who thinks they speak for integrity as the law? I'm not even a lawyer. Not even police. There's a Trantolo also involved with relevant crime methods with them, pretending people make conspiracy theories, fake conversation with us, switching people's names and words as roles at crime scenes and with wire crimes with WFSB, preventing people from telling on it too by adding additionally to it as roles at other natures of crime scenes and increasingly too. More with child abusers. A Roger Suzanne and look in his eyes. He looks like a child abuser. Make sure he fixed the fake conversations he had with me when he was hiding what I caught them, confessed also with the child abusers, and more upskirt pictures involved with Twitter and with the police forms relative and the uses of the houses next to them. Its uses of every place is next to every place too is relevant, so you could discern the method that is actually recorded. Thank you, people. Get a response for them. See Renaissance again. Full at last. Vaccines. I just